So we're back at a caravan park today, and we're going to be taking a look at some of the electrics on one of the static caravans today. So I'm going to talk you through some of the things that we see, and we'll talk about some of the regulations that apply to static caravans. So here at the side of static caravan, we have their supply. So this is what we call a caravan hookup. It's a 16 amp supply from an electrical distribution board on the site up to one of these posts. We've got a 16 amp commando outlet, and we've got an earth connection here down to an earth rod that's installed in the ground. Now within this hookup, we've got a meter and we've got an RCD. Now all of that gets tested as part of the site inspection, but we'll give it a quick test for good measure just to check that RCD's tripping, make sure there's supply there, and we'll take the socket apart first, and then we'll inspect the blue commando plug to make sure that that's all in good condition. There's no signs of overheating, no signs of water ingress or anything like that first. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to pop our head underneath the caravan, and as we'll see here, first of all, take a look at the earth rod. We make sure that's all connected, make sure there's nothing loose. As we bring the camera up under the caravan, you'll see that the caravan is on a metal subframe here, as you can see underneath. So we're going to want to make sure that there's an earth bonding connection down to that subframe underneath the caravan. So we'll have a quick look underneath there. Helps to locate where you think the distribution board is inside the caravan first, because they'll try and keep cable runs to a minimum. So we're inside the caravan now, and depending on the owner, depends on what the caravan's been used for. So it's either an owner that comes here and uses this as a second home, or it's used as a rental. If it's used as a rental, then it tends to get a lot more wear and tear. So it's good to carry out a really thorough inspection of all of the switches, all of the isolators, all of the plug sockets and things like that. We're looking for clues that tell us that something's been done to the caravan since it was manufactured and delivered to site. So for example, in this lounge, I can see straight away that behind the camera, there's a USB socket. Now that wasn't original to the caravan when it was supplied, so it's something we'd take off and we'd have a look at, and we'd make sure that the cabling behind there had been done correctly. But as we look around the caravan, our consumer unit can be in any number of places in the property. Quite often it's hidden in one of the cupboards in one of the bedrooms, or in this case, is located here in the living room, tucked away at the back of a cupboard. Always quite a cramped working environment, not the best place to put them really, but it's part of the manufacturing. So let's just talk about lighting for a moment here in caravans. This downlight here is what's called a reflector lamp, and this has got an aluminium back to the lamp, and it pushes all of the heat down from that light fitting down into the room, but it also pushes the light to a wider area as well. But one of the things that happens with these reflector lamps and these types of downlights in caravans, people quite often put the wrong kind of lamp in there. So that's something we need to make note of on our inspection, to make sure that the correct kind of lighting is correctly fitted into the correct kind of light fittings. In this kitchen area, for example, we've got a different kind of downlighter here. We have got an LED downlighter fitted within a recessed fitting. It's a GU10 fitting. So again, it's been retrofitted into the installation since the caravan has been installed. They fitted an LED light fitting, which again is moving light and heat down into the room rather than up into the loft space. When we were using GU10 and other MR16 lamps, we had to make sure they were the right type so that we weren't pushing heat back into the loft insulation here around the light fitting. That's really important, that we're making sure the right kind of lamps are fitted in the fittings. So here we are in the electrical cupboard. This is our consumer unit for the caravan. It's a small plastic clad consumer unit made by a company called Plug-in Systems, and these are really common to be found in all caravans across the country. It's quite an old system. We see some dates here on the stickers back to 2012, and the originals here were back to around 2002. So from that point of view, we've got a caravan here that is around 23 years old. We can see that there's been some works carried out on the caravan at some point, because we've got a plastic blanking plate here that's not original to the installation, but there's no other labels here to say there was other circuits, so I'm not quite sure why that's been put in. The wiring regs require that these clips are literally a clip that takes a tool to remove, and the fact that I can just pop my finger in there and we can see there straight away that that's not the best retaining clip in the world. So a member of the public or a child could quite as easily have done exactly what I've done here and been able to put their finger into this consumer unit. So that's not something we'd like to see on a regular basis. So we'll change that clip out before I finish, just to make sure that is safe on an ongoing basis. So let's take the cover off. So you can pretty much see everything that I can in this image. So we've taken the cover off of our consumer unit and having a look inside. We can see there's quite a large hole to the back of the consumer unit here. They've carried out some repairs here. At some point there was a cable coming in to the bottom of the board, and they've fixed that by putting a little bit of trunk in there. It's a little bit on the messy side. There's also still quite a large hole to the back of the consumer unit here that I can stick my screwdriver through and see straight away that they could do with being filled. So there's a couple of ways we could deal with that. A little bit of sealant in the back there and a plastic grommet just to fill this hole. We've got some bonding here. We talked earlier about the bonding to go off to the substrate. To the subframe of our Caravan, and there'll be bonding running off to the earth rod, and then there'll be an earth bond that runs to our water supply or to our boiler or something along those lines as well. And then we've got the supplies going off to our various circuits. The first one we have here is the supply just at the top there, and the first one is a supply that comes in on the 2.5mm Arctic Flex from the Commando plug outside, and then each of the bonds. Now, the easiest way to test each of these bonds is to use a wander lead. It's an essential piece of equipment in our toolkit as an electrical inspector, but also alongside that, to have a 16 amp to 13 amp converter makes it easier for us to test those plugs and hookups as well. So with the power's off on the hookup outside at the moment, so we'll just go through, check the tightness of all of these terminals just to make sure there's nothing loose. Then we'll start by taking apart various circuits and going through and doing some earth continuities, so earth loop impedances, insulation test, and bits like that. One of the things we have to take care of when it comes to insulation tests is any fixed appliances or neons in any of the fuse connection units, to make sure that we're not going to do those damage as well. But we're going to have a look from here, and I'll come back to you in a few moments. So here we are looking inside one of the light switches. I've just taken these off. As I'm going to demonstrate to you here, they're all using dry line impactress boxes like this one. They are a fiddly little sound, so especially if anybody has broken these lugs off to the side. So always take your time, be careful with these. As you'll see in here, this is not standard twin and earth cable. This is an armoured cable which has been used, or a tough cable that's been used throughout the Caravan. So we're getting slightly different test results than we'd normally expect to see. Let's see if we can just zoom in on that for you. As you'll see there, it's got 3 CPCs, all to the same size, and 2 different colours. Conductors with the earth CPC that we put some sleeving onto. So that's given me some slightly different results than what a normal twin and earth would give me, but it's given me a good understanding as to why. In a lot of the electrical and health and safety regulations, the terms competent person are there. And as an electrical inspector, we're assuming the responsibility of the competent person for the time that we're on site to give an assessment of the electrical and fire safety as far as our knowledge and our qualifications allow us to go. So as part of this inspection, I've had a wander around the property, I've done the electrical inspection, I've tested the smoke detectors, and I've noticed here, as I've looked at the fire extinguisher on the side here, that it's lost pressure on the fire extinguisher. So again, this fire extinguisher would be pretty useless in the event of a fire. So again, that's something I would just bring up to the person ordering my report to say, you know, you need to have your fire extinguishers looked at and the smoke alarms that are beeping in the background. That allows me to then pass my responsibility back to the client. I've made them aware of something, and I've kind of dispersed that responsibility. Electrical safety is really important. If we see something electrically unsafe during our inspection, that we either make it safe or we bring it to the attention of the person ordering our report so that they can authorise repair straight away. We don't want to leave anything, especially in a holiday accommodation, that people could electrocute themselves or stick their finger into something live and dangerous. It takes a huge amount of responsibility on us as an electrical inspector to give our best assessment of the safety of this premises for the continued use going forward. And that was the whole premise of the wiring regulations from day one. In an older Caravan like this, it's quite common for us not to find any form of isolator for the fan in the bathroom or the fan in the toilet. Now, they're things I'd expect to find in a newer residential property, so that we've got a means of isolation for those fans so that we can undertake maintenance on them in a safe and effective manner. But we're not finding them here in this caravan, so that's something, again, that we'll mention in our report that we'd normally find there, and it's not to the current standards. Thanks for joining me in the smallest room in the house. I'm here in the bathroom in a caravan, and like most bathrooms, we get a lot of damp and moisture. So there's a few important things for us to remember when we're inspecting these areas. First of all, we'll take a look at the light fitting. We'll take the cowling off. We'll make sure there's no damage and heat damage to any of those cables within the light fitting. We also need to make sure it's the correct IP rating for the environment that we're in. There's a lot of damp and steam and moisture in here. Also see where it's located in relation to the zones that are here in our bathroom, just the same as the zones that we have within the wiring regulations in a house. They still apply here in a caravan. We also have an extractor fan. We want to make sure that, again, that's working in good condition and that there's no dust and debris in there that could be causing problems. Again, finally, we check the pull cord, the light switch, make sure that that works and that the lights and everything come on. Like any bathroom, we've got a lot of risks here to electrical safety and human beings because they tend to be naked when we wash. And there's that opportunity that when a fault occurs, we're more likely to get a dangerous shock when we're cold, wet, and not fully clothed. So we need to protect members of the public when they're using a bathroom or shower location. Let's move on to the next room now. If you've been here for the last few minutes, then you'll hear in the background that one of the smoke detectors is beeping on a regular basis. Now that doesn't form part of our electrical inspection, but I do have a duty of care to make a note of that on my report to let people know that that smoke detector needs the batteries replacing and that fire safety is an important thing. And if I've made a note of it, I've passed my responsibility back to the client and they've been made aware of it so that they can do something about it. Unlike domestic properties, we tend not to have interlinked smoke alarms or mains powered smoke alarms in residential caravans. So it is one of those things, on every inspection, I do tend to just press the button, check the smoke alarms are working, and then make a note of it on the report just to say that they've been checked or that they need some attention.